4, 3, 2.5, 1. Call budget and appropriations to order at 7 p.m. Thank you. All right. I have two motions to bring forward, and one I'm going to hold and with a little explanation, from the docket of March 17th, 2015. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $68,371.37 from account 1000-359000, undesignated fund balance, free cash, general government, to account 13001000-551011, school appropriation Medicaid, to fund the municipal sharing agreement.
Second.
Thank you. As you know, every year, in the budget process, we set aside some money to fund the Medicaid program. They go through and take care of the bookkeeping work that assigns a certain percentage of reimbursement from the federal government for Medicaid. So we have to front the money in order to run the program, and then once that money comes in, the school and the city split the proceeds. Last year, if you remember, we designated this appropriation to cover transportation costs. But we heard from Ms. Gould last week that things are in better shape, so we're not stipulating a certain expenditure for these funds. These can be used for any funds within the school department. So that was a difference in what we've done last year, because I did ask for that vote, a review of that vote. So we're transferring $68,371 over to the school, as we've been doing since 1999. So this was an agreement between the schools and the city back then, and we've continued that forward. Any questions on this? Hearing none, move for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. The second one, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $25,000 from account 1000-359000, undesignated fund balance, free cash, general government, to account 1543100-577010, veterans benefit, veterans aid.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. I went into the budget. We had budgeted for, requested and recommended and approved for Veterans Aid, $745,000. And last year at this time, he had requested about $120,000. But I went back and looked also at what was the revised budget for 2014, and it was $768. So he's almost exactly where he was last year for the fiscal year. So this transfer will bring him up to $770,000. He was at $768 and change last year. So within a few dollars, he's exactly. Remember, by doing the Veterans Aid the way we do receive reimbursement from, and it's in the next fiscal year, but we do receive reimbursement. 3/4, 75%. 75% reimbursement. So, and this will, I went up and talked with him, and he said this will take him through the rest of this fiscal year. So that was a good thing. Any questions? Move for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. The last one, I'm going to hold for now. It's a transfer to cover additional funds for parades and memorials. They would like the veterans and Carl Bradshaw would like to expand some of the things that they want to do with the Memorial Day parade. And so I wanted him to be able to explain their ideas, what they would like to do, and in order to, for this to go through. So what I've asked for is at 6:45 next week to have a brief committee meeting. I've asked Carl to come down and explain some of the things that they want to do to bring some other acts in and things in that, but do cost some money in order to make the Memorial Day Parade even that more enjoyable. So I said I asked him to come in, and I'll hold this until that, and he said that was fine. And I'm planning to bring it forward for a vote next week. I'm not going to vote it on this week, but I'll have a committee meeting next week, have Carl here, vote it at the committee, and I'm planning, if it goes through with the committee, I'll bring it forward for a vote of the full council. And he was fine with that. Okay, so that's what I have for budget and appropriations. A move to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're adjourned at 7:04. Thank you.
The Committee on Ordinances, Elections, and Legislative Matters is canceled for the night.
Committee for Transportation and Traffic is canceled for tonight. Anybody doing personnel?
She'll be,
Capital
I think she's coming.
Improvements is anticipating a guest, so if
Yeah.
Personnel and Human Services has any business
Well-
before the council tonight,
I believe she's going to be,
or city property and claims?
I do.
We're going to hold personnel first.
we're going to hold that for the moment. I did want to announce also, for those who are wondering, and for those watching home, Councilor Waite is not here this evening because there is the meeting on the closing or capping of the Attleboro landfill. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, he was not going to be here. He and I had talked about this, but there was a snowstorm. That meeting got canceled on that night. The landfill is in the ward that he represents. He and I and other members, actually, of city government have gone to previous meetings on the closing or the capping of that. In the past, they've been on a Wednesday or a Thursday night. All of a sudden, they have them on Tuesday nights. So he and I had spoken, and I had asked him, agreed with him about going, and he was going to be bringing some information, even from myself. So that's why he is not here this evening, and I believe that there isn't anything in his committee, but whoever is vice chair of that committee
Zoning and Land Use is canceled this
can
evening.
cancel. Okay, thank you very much.
I have a small motion, or...
No, go ahead.
Okay. Is that okay with you?
Yep. So once you get past 7, we can take them out of any order,
I
so.
didn't want to jump in front of anyone else. I'll need you as a third.
Yep.
Let's see. Okay, call this committee meeting for city property and claims to order at 7:06. I have one motion for tonight from the docket of March 17th, 2015. I entertain a motion in accordance with Section 2-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to declare the following MIS department items as surplus and available for disposition. 35 assorted computers that have been stripped of their electronics, 18 assorted monitors that are not in working condition, 3 HP LaserJet printers not in working condition, 1 HP LaserJet 5SI poor working condition, 1 HP DesignJet not in working condition.
Second.
Thank you. Right, I left my piece of paper over there. Thank you.
Want me to tell you? Oh,
I
no.
did. Heaven's sakes. So I made a phone call or two today, and I spoke with,
Bill Lennox?
thank you, Bill Lennox. All of a sudden, it was to talk about the soup earlier. It messed my mind.
I know.
It happens. I talked to Bill quite a bit today, and these are just the computers and the monitors are ones they've been replaced throughout the city at varying times. A bunch came from the water department and other places. They're all out back. They're utilized. They take all the electrical components, hard drives, and everything out, and then they scrap the rest of it. And nothing is in any kind of working order that's able. No parts are able to be replaced or anything like that. So, any other questions or concerns?
Oh,
I'll move for a vote. All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. And then I do have another piece of material on my docket here with regards to the zoo and the Friends of the Cape Run Park Zoo, the 15 hexagon tables and some paving. We're just waiting for a little bit more information, and we're waiting for some snow to clear so that they can get a good quote for how much it'll be for the paving and how we're gonna handle who's paying for what and how they're paying for it. So once we get that all together, which will be sooner rather than later, I'll bring that out for us to discuss. All right, that concludes my business for this evening. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Motion passes. We are adjourned at 7:09.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Do you want
I got two. You wanna go?
No, go ahead.
I'm gonna do Peter's too. I'll do mine first, Peter. second. I'd like to call the licensing committee to order at 7:09. I have one motion and some information regarding the licenses. From the docket of March 17th, 2015, I entertain a motion to approve the application for a new 2015-2016 Hackney driver's license for Kimberly Gale Spivey, 833 Hillside Avenue, Attleboro, Mass.
Second.
I talked to the police detective, and the fingerprinting has been concluded and the information sent to the city clerk's office, so according to the police, everything that is required of them has been passed, so I don't have any problems with this. Any other concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. And as a matter of information, I know that under old business, we have the AOK Motors. I have received several more written statements from customers. I have not, at this time, Mr. President, received anything else from the owner of the property.
Okay.
And also, for your information, I think all the legal matters have been cleared up for State Line Motor, and I will meet with Mr. Casey this week. He's been sick. I know there was some information passed out about paying sales tax prior to this closure, but apparently they appealed that because that had to do with the prior owner.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if that's been resolved. I'd like to call Public Works to order at 7:11, and I'll wait for the chair to leave.
I'll be excusing myself. My son works for the water department. This is about overtime money, so,
Thank you, sir.
I'll be your second member.
okay,
Okay.
thank you.
I have four motions from Public Works, all from the docket of March 17th, 2015. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $20,000 from account 6000-578300 wastewater enterprise fund reserve fund for transfer to account 6000-513000 wastewater enterprise fund overtime, relative to overtime funding because of several significant snowstorms.
Second.
As you know, the city has been dealing with the excessive snow for the last 40 days, and this is part of the problem of transferring money to pay for overtime. And I do believe, Mr. President, some of this money is reimbursable because of the emergency. Hopefully, we will get some of it back.
Correct.
Number two, I entertain a motion.
We have
I'm
to-
sorry.
we have to
Is there
vote.
any other concerns?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
It's a vote too.
I got carried away.
What's happening in that seat tonight?
By the way, I went by the landfill. It is capped. It's got white stuff on it.
That's not approved material by
Okay.
the state.
We have to take it off.
Oh, yeah, we would.
Actually, I think I saw people skiing on it. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $30,000 from account 6100-524-003 Water Enterprise Fund Maintenance Wells to account 6100-51300 Water Enterprise Fund Overtime to relative to overtime funding because of several significant snowstorms.
Second.
There is some concern with this, and I will, on behalf of Public Works, I will check with Debbie Gould this week before the week is out as to how this paper chase is working out. There's some things that are not clear, and if there's a change in that, I will bring it before this honorable body.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Again, from the March 17th, 2015, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $3,097 from account 11241-000-584019, citywide retaining wall, to account 1124100-578300, citywide reserve fund for transfer relative repairs to the retaining wall in the Mulaney Twins parking lot along County Street.
Second. Oops, somebody didn't turn off their phone.
Want to get that doorbell, Jeff? I think this is pretty self-explanatory. Everybody knows who that is if you've eaten at Moran's. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And the last motion I have from the docket of March 17th, 2015, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $10,000 from account 1420100-548010, Department of Public Works gasoline, to account 1420100-521010, Department of Public Works heating, for funding to cover the heating costs for the remainder of fiscal year 2015.
Second.
And I suspect that the weather has a lot to do with this need.
Also, Ron, thanks for doing that committee, but also they took over the forestry department building this year to store some of our vehicles.
And we have to heat the
And we
building.
have to heat it, so that's contributes to that factor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That's all I have from the Public Works, and I adjourn at 7:15.
Second.
Second. A third?
Thank you.
All those in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to have to give you half my pay, Mr. President. Opposed? And we are adjourned at 7:15.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Thank
Nice job.
Public safety, you have any?
Oh, it's 8 minutes. We're moving right through this.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Did you need this, Mark? with you?
Probably.
We're all a little off tonight, I think.
Okay. Call public safety to order 7:16. From the docket of March 17th, 2015, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $4,904.28 from account 112-41000-578300, citywide reserve fund for transfer, to account 121-01000-524011, police maintenance of buildings, for funding to replace non-functional heating panels at the police station.
Second.
Pretty straightforward. The heating panels don't work. They need to be replaced. It's $4,904.28 to replace them. And we need to get them done ASAP.
It's cold out there.
It's cold. Any questions, comments, problems? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned, 7:17.
Good, Judy just started.
Call the Capital Improvements Committee meeting to order at 7:17. I have just one piece of business to get through, and then we'll have a special speaker. From the docket of March 17, 2015, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $48,000 from account 6000-359-000 wastewater enterprise fund retained earnings to fund 3217 diffused air system for the nitrogen removal pilot plant post aerator design. Second. I think I heard Councilor Thibodeau first. I think you all received the memo from Paul, but this is a very similar scenario to what we went through with Next Gen about a year ago in Ward 4-5. The process that Mr. Kennedy has invented for that plant that has saved the city millions of dollars makes use of anaerobic enzymes and bugs to digest. And those bugs have to be kept alive by pumping oxygen and aeration down into the solution. And it's a very sophisticated oxygen monitoring system that makes sure that the bugs have enough to eat, because no one knows how many bugs are down there and how much they're eating, and it's complicated. So I would suggest to the council that the $48,000 to keep his nitrogen removal pilot plant operating and free of noxious stench is a investment well done, considering the millions of dollars that we would have had to spend if we didn't have this innovative process. Are there any questions?
Yeah, it sounds like a reasonable thing to do.
Very reasonable thing to do. So the motion's in order, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Next, we have a speaker. The Attleboro Redevelopment Authority Chairperson Judith Robbins is here to give us a quarterly update for the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority. For those of you at home, you need to understand that this is not a meeting to call in Judy Robbins for any particular reason. That in a memorandum of understanding between the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority and the neighborhood of Tiffany Street area, the memorandum of an agreement mandated that the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority appear before the Capital Improvement Committee once a quarter until the land in the industrial business park has been sold. I apologize for the tones,
Times, yeah.
interesting tones.
It's a sign of being
Welcome,
popular.
Ms. Robbins, nice to see you here.
Thank you very much. It's nice to have a chair.
Nice to have you.
Need to choose, and I chose sitting down, I suppose. Hope nobody minds. Well, we didn't exactly come back quarterly, did we?
Well,
Tried.
we're quasi-quarterly. I think
5.5 months, Rick.
we're doing much better than we used to.
Well, we tried very hard, but we sort of got snowed out a few times, and other kinds of things interfered, like Christmas and my going away and coming back and things like that. So I'm here to give you the
I don't know what that is, and I apologize.
somebody dialed
Someone
their
thinks they're
telephone.
dialing out.
Over the speaker system.
Over the
Yeah.
speaker,
Yeah.
yeah.
It sounds like Frank.
Wish I'd known how to do that. I could have really interrupted the council in a neat way.
Oh, they're calling Linda.
Apparently someone must have hit the wrong keys on the phone system.
Sounds like it.
Gee, Mayor, I thought that was your system. I'm only kidding.
Let's stay on track.
If it had been, I would have figured out how to use it, sir.
So Judy, you're welcome to roll through your project lists as you see fit.
Okay, I will indeed. I'm going to start with talking about the ITC because that's where most of the action is right now. And I hope that people understand that by the ITC, we don't just mean the bus loop. The Intermodal Transportation Center is that whole section of land between Wall Street and Olive Street that we are using what is still left of the urban renewal bond to work on, and as many grants as we can get. So let me just sort of start a little bit of backing up, but really not much because people know what we've done. The first thing that happened in the ITC area was AMP North, which is where Renaissance Station is currently being built, and I believe that they're starting to rent, and I don't know anybody so far that doesn't like the idea, so that's just wonderful, and people keep looking at it, and I hope it's very, very successful. We think it's great looking. So that moves us on to AMP South, which is across the street. And if you remember when I last was here, we had gotten an appraisal from Keystone for $1.2 million for the value of that land. We are now very near to signing a land disposition agreement with Marco Cugnali again. He has agreed to pay $1.2 million for the land, and if in fact we have to have another appraisal before we can actually sell it, and that is going to depend on the state. If the appraisal goes up, he'll go up. If the appraisal goes down, he'll stay where he is. So we were just really thrilled with all of that. There didn't seem to be any problem. We were able to get an extra grant for the extra kerosene cleanup that showed up after we were deeply into cleaning up the contamination there. Suddenly we came upon just a nice little, I don't know, pool of kerosene down there, and it kept coming up in large amounts. And I think it is slowing down now, but I'm not really sure, and no one could figure out where it came from. We don't think it drifted from anywhere. We think that it's been there a long time. But anyway, we got $250,000 more from Mass Development in order to deal with that, so we're very pleased. Hello. Now, the only problem with that particular sale is that we still do not know whether 80% of the income of the profit, and they're mostly profit, on that will have to go back to the FTA, Federal Transit Authority, because they indeed provided the grants that allowed us to purchase the property in the first place. Now, they sometimes do allow income like that generated in the middle of a project to go back into the project. And we are sincerely hoping that will happen, because we can think of lots of things that could happen very nicely along in that land if we had another extra maybe 800,000 or so to spend on it. Maybe they'll make up their minds one of these days. I have tried to explain the issue as clearly as I can. I keep getting these little notes that say, I don't understand XYZ, so I'm not real sure. Next, moving on to Riverfront Drive. Riverfront Drive, heading from Olive Street over to Wall Street, has begun, got nicely started. And then as it was reaching a problem, which had to do with getting close to where the old city landfill used to be, they discovered that there was more junk under the ground and less solid. It was unsolid longer. And so they tried to figure out what to do, and eventually wound up hiring 2 different geophysicists to take a look at it and figure out what to do. And they will be on the site once they can begin digging again. But needless to say, you can't dig if you can't get under the ice. So that project is on a slow, just on a halt right now. But as soon as the winter stops bothering everybody, we'll be able to be moving forward, and we do have the 2 geophysicists there to look at what's happening and to be sure. They sort of figured out how deep they had to go, went back and forth, picked a happy medium. Yes, they did so. Picked a happy medium, and now they're both going to be on the site to see which one was right. So, the new DPW on Lamb Street is a very interesting sort of project, because we were all done with Lamb Street. The ARA had paid and gotten grants to clean up the land on Lamb Street, and we had finished, and we had done the activity and use limitations, and we were all set, and we were out of there. And all of a sudden, it appeared that it became necessary and indeed best to move the DPW to that site. After they figured out how to make it fit on there, that's fine. Okay, now then they needed some money to do a site plan, a little site engineering. So lo and behold, the ARA came up with $50,500 out of the urban renewal bond, so that Horsley Witten could do that. Then they needed somebody to help them with the architecture. So now the ARA has come up with $121,000 out of the urban renewal bond to do the architecture for RGB, and we are just sincerely hoping that they don't ask for very many more large amounts, because one of these days the urban renewal bond is going to be used up. It still has, I think, about $350,000 or $350,000 in it. It's a little hard for me to tell in between, because I pay bills and then I have to go and check it out, and which ones are against and which ones aren't. And then Ron Dubuque came to us a week or so ago and said that he didn't have money to do this special safety gate. So we gave him $33,000 from the urban renewal bond to do his safety gate. He's still trying to figure out how to do all of that on our dollar. The contract from the company that's going to provide the gate was $23,000, and we are now contracting with them. So that's easy. We can pay a contract. But I think he was going to have a lot of the other work done by his own people and maybe buy things at Home Depot or something like that. And I understand that Deb Gould and Carol Brown have been working together trying to figure out the very best way to do that. I think they're gonna wind up having Home Depot bill us for some of the things, and that's fine. We can pay a Home Depot bill. What we can't do is give money to the DPW. You can't just give money back to the city, that's not legal. But it seems to be going on very, very fast. And when I say it seems to be going along very fast, let me tell you that today, I got a bill for $11,000 from Horsley Witten, and another bill for $68,000 from the architects. So somebody's working because they're already wanting to be paid. So I'm hoping that these little amounts that I send for reimbursement to the mayor will work their way through very quickly. And I've talked to Deb Gould, and she's not at all concerned. So then, Falmouth Street. Falmouth Street is on hold until the city managed to demolish the building on the site. If you remember, the ARA does not own Falmouth Street. We are dealing with cleaning up the land around because we got a grant to do it. And we've got about $48,000 left from that grant. So once they demolish the building, we'll be able to use that money, and it may not be enough, but we'll figure out some other source to get enough money to clean up what's left in the ground. No one's very concerned about that right now. I think probably the weather is stopping that one too.
Yes. Judy, could you hold up for a question from
Yeah,
Council
just a quick one, Judy. You have enough money to demo it and get rid of the,
We are not demoing. The city is, the ARA is not demoing. The city is, and I think Ethel or the mayor are doing it from other sources of funds.
okay.
Because Ethel is going to sell this property once it's cleaned up, and then anything that's been spent against it will be able to be balanced by the money that she gets.
Councilor Churchill?
Chairman. Judy, that building's been around for a long time.
Yes.
When the study was done, the engineering study to take it down, was there any idea what the cleanup would be? Because I can remember getting involved in that building, and that question was asked way back when, and nobody really knew.
It's really very interesting. I don't think ever any idea was, because it's kind of a surprise to us after the difficulty that we had putting together the information for demolition for the Reynolds and Markman building, how quickly the city people seemed to think they could demolish the building on Falmouth Street, until they found out that you have to do these studies, and you have to get rid of the asbestos, and you have to get rid of the, I don't know, mercury and what all else, and you have to have the pest control guy come in and be sure that there are no rats in there. I mean, it's unbelievable what you have to do before you can just take a building down. You can't just sort of roll the bulldozers over and start. But they're pretty well on the way to doing what they need to do, and I think they'll probably be able to. I think Ethel's going to use money from her accounts, but I'm not really sure, to tell you the truth. It's not been my problem.
I believe the council appropriated.
Oh, you
money.
appropriated money?
Yes, we did.
To follow up to that, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
so
Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Realistically, 48,000 won't be enough to clean that up.
No, we know that.
Okay.
I just want, you keep asking me to put the money into it, and I'm trying to do that. That is how much we have left in a grant that started the cleanup of the ground there. So we can use that, but we're going to have to get more, yes, no question.
Thank you.
Reynolds and Markman building is on hold, waiting for the next funding cycle from the EPA. They seem to think that we stand a pretty good chance of getting some money. We've subdivided the land into 3 pieces so that we can apply for 3 separate grants. Each piece has a different kind of cleanup on it. One of them is the place where the old fire was in the chemical fire. One is the old industrial landfill that I think was run on that property for a long time. And then there's another little place that's got some mercury and lead or something like that. That no one can quite figure out how it got there, probably got tossed out the back door.
At that plant, if I may,
Yes,
Mr.
Councilor.
I do remember that where the new railroad facility is, the bus station, that factory was leaking into our yard for quite some time. And it took some of the product in the building, so we'd have to know what was in that building, but.
Up where the bus station is?
Yes.
Yeah, but the Reynolds and Markman land ends before it gets that far.
Theirs was a result of the fire, the warehouse
Yes,
fire.
the warehouse fire that was up by Olive Street.
Was the dump.
Yeah, the industrial landfill, where city industrial waste was
Is
put
the
for a long
mercury in
time.
the landfill?
No, it's closer down near where the road's gonna be and sort of in between where the landfill ends and where the fire was. It's just sort of a spot that got found.
Thank you.
Maybe somebody didn't want to put mercury in the other landfill. I don't know.
Amazing what you find when you go looking.
These
for it.
days, I would not be surprised at much of anything I find when I go back into the, when people tell me to go back in the ARA archives, I'm not sure they really want me to. It's very interesting. And then, today, yesterday, I got a copy of the most recent draft of the TOD, Transit-Oriented Development Zoning, that Gary has been working on. Jackie Romanecki and I met with Gary a couple of months ago and went through it once, and then he had to update some of the things and got involved with doing other stuff, including the capital improvements program, and being ill. So he has now given us a draft that everybody's looking at, so my board will probably be ready to talk about that at the next meeting. And at this point, we are thinking that it will not be difficult to both pass the ordinance and rezone that hunk of land, since most of it is owned by the ARA right now. And we really want the transit-oriented development to apply to that whole area between Wall Street and Olive Street, so that the open land can be used for some of the things that seem appropriate. And you guys will get a marvelous chance to look at it. It will come to the council for approval. So, moving along, I get to Swank. When I get to the Swank building, I sort of start to shiver, because the Swank building was never a problem to the ARA 5 years ago or 6 years ago when I came on the board. But it increasingly became a problem as it became obvious that the original agreement that was made between the ARA and Stern Leach was not going to go through. What was going to happen was the ARA was going to buy the building from Swank, clean up the stuff that was on the ground, and then essentially sell the building back to Stern Leach for $1, because they were paying us $800,000 to begin with. Well, they got the $800,000, Mr. Milanowski and his crowd, and they spent most of it, I'm sorry to say, over on the IBP, but it no longer existed in an account. So it began to be quite a bother, and Mr. Mangiarotti sat down with the people at Stern Leach, and we actually wound up negotiating a brand-new purchase and sale agreement, which we signed in October. The new purchase and sale agreement called for the 3 vacant lots that were parking lots to be transferred to Stern Leach, for the 1 lot that the building is on and the building itself to remain with the ARA. So it's never been out of the ARA's ownership since it was bought from Swank. A first refusal to Stern Leach to buy that building, should it ever wind up, or buy that land should the building ever wind up being demolished. The ownership of that piece of discontinued Hazel Street that's in between where Leach Garner is and where the back of Swank is, has been totally turned over to Stern Leach. We didn't want to have any part of it. We didn't have any need for it, and the city has its rights reserved, so that's not a problem. And then the $800,000 was not to be returned to Stern Leach. It figured that there had been enough things going on, there were enough other grants back and forth. Everybody's pretty happy with this agreement, and it has been signed. And now we're just waiting to see what can go on. In the time between when the ARA first bought the building and now, there have been a couple of major changes in the definition of what a contaminated building is and what can be in one. And I'm sure the mayor explained all this to you a few weeks ago, but it still kind of surprises me that you can get an approval for a project under one set of rules, and halfway through, or even 2/3 of the way through, they change the rules. But nevertheless, it's to the benefit of the people. They've changed the rules because they've discovered that some of this stuff is more dangerous, particularly to pregnant women and young children, and that it's just not safe for people to work in buildings that have a lot of these contaminants. So, since we cannot reuse the building, we either have to totally shut it down or demolish it. The fire chief then got involved because he was very concerned that we know that he has the right to decide whether or not we have to maintain fire suppression. And he was very concerned that this 4-story, huge building near the hospital, near people, near all kinds of things, I think downwind or upwind or something from the hospital too, I'm not real sure, but anyway, ought not to be left without fire protection. So we looked at all different ways. We looked at, could you close down, could you empty the water suppression system and put in these sort of like light beam kind of things that would tell you if something was breaking the beam, and smoke would break the beam. Turned out those were both very expensive to put in, expensive to keep using, because every time you messed one up, then you had to go buy a new thing to put in there. And also, really, in the long run, would not have been a big help to the fire department if there had not been any sprinkler system there. It would have told them that there was a fire in their 4-story building, but it wouldn't have helped them very much. So we finally went back to what was once the original plan, which was to keep the building heated sufficiently so that we could keep the fire suppression system from freezing. We've had the fire suppression system tested. One piece of it is not working pretty well, but most of the rest of it is. And since our intention is to do the demolition later this spring, May or June, fingers crossed, we've not been told that we have to repair that, but we do have to keep the building heated. And I will tell you, it's absolutely astonishing to me. We have already, in the time since you folks gave us some money to start using, spent $53,258 on oil. And that doesn't count a bill for the oil that was probably delivered the end of last week, because they've been doing it every 2 weeks through this bad time. And the last one that we got a bill for was from the 20th of February. So I'm sure there's something going to come in around the first week of March, this last week or this week. And it tends to cost between $12,000 and $15,000 to buy 2 weeks worth of oil. It's very expensive, and we are continuing to do this.
Brings a question from Councilor Denley.
Ms. Robbins, so did I hear correctly that you're hoping to demolish the building May or June of this year?
This is the mayor's intention.
That's wonderful news.
Well, we have to get the money.
Well, I thought we were talking years, like 4 or 5 years down the road. So
No,
to
because
hear-
we do not think that we can continue to pay $12,000 to $15,000 every 2 weeks. It's like $30,000 a month every winter to keep heating this thing. It just doesn't make any sense. And some of the things that we are not doing, like repairing one of the standpipes or whatever they're called. Thank you. I knew you'd know. It's okay for us not to repair it if we're going to take it down this year. It would not be okay not to repair it if we were going to keep it up for a whole another year. So the intention really is to figure out how to get this thing down. We're doing pretty well with mass development. We'll probably get $1.5 million from them. That's the maximum that they can give for a project. And we're very pleased that they're feeling helpful. They do believe that the fact that Stern Leach wants the land once the building is gone is a very good thing. Stern Leach has kind of said, I think, that they want the land to use it for parking so that they can add on to their building where their building is, where they're currently parking people. But nobody really cares where the addition is and where the parking is, as long as it's all right here in Attleboro. So that's part of the right of first refusal that Stern Leach has for the building area.
Can I follow up?
Yes, please.
You know that's right in the middle of my ward.
I do know that's in the middle of
I
your ward.
don't know if I mentioned that a million
But I
times.
was always an at-large councilman, so I consider the whole city my concern.
I just want to say, I think that's tremendous news, and I'm really happy to
Well,
see that.
we are working very hard to be able to
Yeah.
do that, and I hope we'll be able to pull it off. I mean, we've done so many things. I don't know. One of these days we're gonna lose our golden touch, but at this point we seem to be succeeding.
Thank you.
Well, make no mistake, no one here thinks that you can tear that building down for $1.4 million.
No, about 3 is what it's going to cost. About $3 million.
We'd be lucky
So-
to do it for 3, you're right.
In the long run, you guys may get asked to put up the rest of the money, and then you'll have
But
a
you're-
real time to decide whether or not you can stand to spend more money, but sometimes things just have to be done.
Yeah, right now you're in an impossible situation.
Oh, absolutely.
Bad versus
Absolutely.
worse, right?
It was not a bad idea when it was put together in 2006, but this is 2015, and the things that were acceptable then are totally unacceptable now.
And that's likely to continue.
Well, oh yeah, they've changed regulations twice that I recall, and each time they get stricter. You know, a smaller percentage of some of these contaminants can be in the air in the building. Well, this building has got contaminated walls, contaminated floors, contaminated brick, contaminated wood. I mean, it just, this building is, the various parts of it are going to have to be, most of them, disposed of in hazardous waste areas, which is another thing that you don't often have to do in the building you demolish, so.
Right. Councilor Churchill.
Thank you, sir. Judy, even though it's wonderful news, let's say the news isn't wonderful. The building was originally, Stern Leach was interested in the building, correct?
They were when they thought they could use it.
Okay. The contamination in the building is in different pockets, and I'm not sure. I'd like to see the report on that so I could better understand it. But
Sure.
If worse came to worse, and the parts of the building that could be cleaned, could they be cleaned for less than taking the building down and then
No.
sold back?
No one thinks so.
Who said no?
In fact, ES&M, our environmental people, don't really even believe that it can be cleaned. In other words, you can't get the contamination out of the wood, the wooden floors, and
It depends on what type of contamination.
well, I don't know the names of it.
Every
Your
house you
Honor.
go into could be ruled contaminant. And I was just curious if there would be a
That's true. The
plan
stuff you
B.
bring home from the cleaners is probably contaminated,
Okay,
but
correct. And like 1/3 of the sprinkler system is not working. I know I've talked to the chief, and so let's say that building's still here next year. We're gonna have to address that. My concern was, I was wondering if there's any way, and you just said we can't, if they could get rid of some of the contamination. If that's out of the question,
well, it's out of the question for in two ways. Number one, our professionals do not think it can be done. And secondly, Stern Leach doesn't want it.
okay, that's more important than the first one.
All right, let's do it the other way
Well,
around. First of all, Stern Leach doesn't want it. Secondly, Doug Healy doesn't think it can be done.
Well, you just said at one time it was okay, and then it wasn't, so things
Well,
change.
it was, but there
But
was
if they don't want
a,
the building, that's more important.
and they
They want a
decided
clean
that.
slate.
They told us that about maybe 3 years ago, that
All
they
right.
just didn't work into their plans for what they wanted to do. With Leach Garner.
Coming out of this discussion, Ms. Robbins, you're to send the pollution report to Councilor Churchill?
I would be delighted to.
Thank you.
Just leave it the administrative assistant
Okay,
boss, and
I'll do
look at
that.
it.
Thank you.
My follow-up or finish to the question is, so, as we discussed when we met with your board, if we're still here this winter and the building is still up, do you have a plan B? Or what do you think would be the idea?
We don't have a plan B right now. We're a little concerned that we continue to get pushed into complete fire suppression by the fire chief, because we know there are several other empty buildings in the city that are no longer sprinklered, that have been allowed to just sit there. One of the members of our board went out and double-checked, and this is true. But I don't think any of those buildings are as big as a Swank building. I don't think they're as near to the hospital. I think this has become a different major concern.
All right.
And certainly the fire chief has every right to do what he thinks is best for the
He
public
has that
safety.
right. The fire load in that building isn't as dangerous as many of those people think in this council, but it is dangerous. And my opinion is it won't get set on fire unless somebody walks in there and does it. So my concern would be, would you and the fire chief consider boarding that building up and keeping people out?
That would be something that this board, your council would have to really discuss hard with the fire chief, because we've had that discussion several
Okay.
times. I have members of my board of directors who would very much like to just board it up and forget it. But that just doesn't seem to be.
Well, we need to get the fire chief on board to consider that.
Yes.
When you're spending $30,000 a month.
Well, that's only in these real cold winter months. Maybe it'll never be this cold next winter,
Maybe
Chief.
not. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Hold on, Judy. Councilor Blair?
Just one question, going back a ways, Judy. When you sign a new agreement with Stern Leach,
Yeah,
or they've changed their name so many times, I don't know
I
if
know.
that's the
Well,
right name.
apparently the one we signed with was Stern Leach. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that it was Cookson or somebody like
Yeah,
that when we.
they've changed it again. But anyway,
And the company here is called Leach Garner, but.
Leach Garner,
but
that's it.
Stern Leach is who was, the purchase and sale agreement was with them, and so that's who we negotiated with to do another purchase and sale agreement.
when you negotiated the other purchase and sales
We already
agreement,
have, sir.
right, and they took over ownership, is that already past the parking lot?
Yes, they've already become owners of those three.
Three parking areas.
Parking areas.
Was that a wash with the 800,000, or did we get some money from that?
We did not get any money from that. It probably was not even worth $800,000 for those three pieces. I'm not sure. The point is that there had been so much negotiation, there had been several very complicated amendments to the original purchase and sale agreement. They had paid the $800,000 years ago, and it just seemed best in everybody's, I guess everybody's best thinking was simply that let's get out of this as nicely as we can. We can't use the three vacant lots. My understanding is that they're hoping to sell some of them. Anything that they sell one of them for, they have said that the money that comes from that will get used against the demolition of the building. So that's excellent, because they can sell things that we can't sell.
My recollection was back then that 800,000 was a non-refundable deposit.
It was a refundable deposit to begin with.
It was
And then
refundable.
someplace along the way, it became a non-refundable deposit. But it still sat on our books and everybody's books as $800,000 that had been transferred from the Swank project to the IB.
Well, if me as an individual sold something to you and it had a non-refundable deposit, I could do anything I wanted with that 800,000 as long as it wasn't restricted.
And that's exactly what happened.
Okay, I understand that. So my thought is, we turned over, and you say they're not worth anything, but we.
I don't know. We did
Well,
not have
you
them
assume.
appraised.
Okay. There are three decent pieces of property over those three lots. I am surprised that no money was received for them. And we'll end it at that.
Okay, well, I was not surprised, but then maybe if you had sat negotiating with Stern Leach, you wouldn't be surprised either.
Just
So,
because they're a big company don't mean they can't be told.
Well, you're right.
Thank you.
give up the floor, Counselor?
Yes.
I recall underground testing for Swank with concerns about what may be underneath those parking lots. Is there any further developments that reveal that perhaps those parking lots can only be parking lots?
No, there has been nothing that shows it one way or the other, but when we did the purchase and sale agreement, they go as is, and they're not our responsibility anymore. So if anything is found there, and I know one of the lots does have contamination. It's the one that's near where, isn't there a children's school or something?
Near
Daycare
the
thing?
street, I think.
It's right around there. That one is contaminated. But
Counselor,
not by anything that came from Swank. It's contaminated from another source.
did you have a question, Counselor?
Yeah, I think just to clarify, Judy, you said that if they sell those lots, those funds would be used towards the demolition of the building?
That's what they said.
Thank you.
And I don't know if that's in the purchase and sale agreement or not, but I know that it was part of what they were talking about in terms, because we asked them if they would participate in the demolition. And they said, well, look, we'll do this.
Okay.
You know, if we sell these lots for anything, we'll use that money. So we thought that was pretty good. I am very sorry to have to tell you that the balance in that $134,000 that you made available to us is now only $50,000. There have been enough, well, there were $50,000 worth of oil purchase so far. It'll probably be 60 or 70 before we're done. But there have also been other bills for fire suppression survey and for Leach Garner keeps coming over and minding the furnace. They don't charge us for the guy, but they do charge us for the electricity and the different utilities. There's water and a couple other things there. So,
Council Breaker.
Thank you. And part of that 100 and change that we sent, that was for the, to develop the plans for the demolition too? Was that part of it as well?
I think so. At least I've certainly sent in asking for a reimbursement for a $17,000 bill from Axiom. That was the first part of that.
Okay.
There's another $6,000 for doing the bid specs.
Yes, I believe it was the bid specs that were,
The big specs I know will count, but I'm pretty sure that they couldn't do the bids. They couldn't do the bid specs without the first study because they had to know what was there in order to know what they were asking people to deal with.
So to conclude, at this point, you don't know whether or not the $138,000 appropriation to get you through to May will be enough.
Just giving you a slight warning.
Yep,
I got very concerned.
we appreciate that.
I got very concerned when I reconciled the bank account today because the 4 bills that we approved last Thursday to pay, had I paid them at this point, would have left us with $442 in our account. On the other hand, I did send in for 2 different kinds of reimbursements that add up to about $90,000. So it's not that we're totally broke, it's that we're in a sort of a weird position. There's no way, for example, that we can pay a $68,000 bill to those architects without first accessing the urban renewal money to pay it. We don't have an extra $60,000 to pay and then get reimbursed. Now, once before when this happened years ago, we were able to get money from the urban renewal bond ahead just by showing that we had the bills. I am sincerely hoping that the powers that be will allow this to happen again. I think the auditor has talked with me about it a little bit. We'll probably be able to. But it's just very strange to be just kind of once again on the verge of doing what we didn't really like having done when it was the other crowd, which was kiting checks. Writing a check that you don't have any money for and then waiting till you have the money so that you can pay it. That's just not, I don't know whether it's legal. I think it's probably not legal unless you actually send the check out or something, but it's not ethical. You just don't do that. And
Unless you're a car dealer. Sorry.
whoa, what did you say?
I didn't say anything.
Were you talking about my husband?
No.
Absolutely not.
Private joke, Judy.
That was supposed to be my inside voice. Yes, Council Breaker.
which fell out.
Strike that, yeah.
I apologize, and maybe as we talk around and around, and perhaps I'm not the only one, perhaps I'm the only one in the U that has this question, but there might be people at home. Who very specifically owns the Swank building right now?
The ARA.
The ARA does right now.
We bought it from Swank and we have owned it ever since.
Okay. And you have a purchase and sales for, once
Not
it gets
for
clean,
it.
not for that, for the lots.
The purchase and sale agreement was to sell those lots that were part of what we got from Swank. And we do have in there a first refusal on the building if Leach Garner decides Stern Leach decides they want it.
I appreciate the clarification as we were talking
Yeah.
around and around.
Gets
It got a
pretty
little muddy.
confusing. Well, it's
So
like,
thank
we're working on the Falmouth Street, but we don't own Falmouth Street. So a lot of the decisions to be made about Falmouth Street are not even in our control. On the other hand, we now own the old DPW yard. It has been turned over to us because we are the ones that couldn't get money to clean it up. On the other hand, the grant, that is the Mass Works grant for that whole big piece, is a grant to the city. So the city's gonna have to pay for that. So we now have an MOA with the city to manage the demolition of that where we own the land, we're gonna manage the demolition, but they're gonna pay for it. Peace. If the money comes, and it comes from the right places and can be used for the right things, I'm very happy to have somebody else do the first signature, do the second signature myself. It just doesn't bother me a bit. But it's very complicated.
Very powerful authority if you can maneuver the pieces to fall into the right places.
Well, I think we've been kind of showing you that over the last 5 or 6
We have been.
years. We really
The
have.
success.
Yeah. And speaking of successes or not successes, I now have to talk to you about the sports complex, and all I can say is I can't tell you anything more at the sports complex. The negotiations are going on. A closing date kept being moved. We got concerned because we have mortgages, and the mortgages were adding interest. So we asked them to pay the interest from the time at which they started extending. So the interest on the mortgages has been paid since last July. And it's all been paid since last July. And several times we asked for an increase in the deposit so that the non-refundable deposit is now up about $150,000. But I think the bank's got its eye on $150,000 if things don't go through. I really don't know. They may not have access to very much of it. But the truth of the matter is that we are now waiting. The lawyers are working. Everybody seems to be moving ahead. And that's all I can tell you.
These things take time.
They do take time.
Yep. Well, thank
It's been
you.
interesting
Any
having Mr.
councils?
Delisio on our board as a banker. He tells us how much time it really does take to do even small loans. So we're understanding.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Robbins? Thank you very much for being here. And I can't promise you that we'll see you again in 3 months, but we're going to make an effort.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll attempt not to be ill or out of town so that I can come and report to you again.
If you could just stop the
And-
snow, we'd be happy.
She's already done that.
It was 50
My
years ago.
husband feels that he's done that by strict, strong praying night after night. He really hates to be closed in, hates to not be able to do things. You know, cabin fever, you've ever heard of cabin fever?
Oh, yeah.
Marcus is the #1 example of cabin fever.
So that concludes the business that we have before the capital improvements and city development meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's in order, all in favor?
Aye.
I declare the capital improvements committee adjourned at 8:01. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Judy.
Thanks, Judy.
We have one committee left.
Yep.
Is it that side or this side? It doesn't matter, we
That's
did it.
We're all done.
We're all done.
And any of you who want to come to our meetings at 4 o'clock on first and third Thursdays of the month at the library, you're certainly welcome. It was kind of fun to have Heather and Ron and Jeremy
It's a
there the
most-
other day,
it's a
and we
most-
felt like
most-
maybe we
It's a
added
most
some information.
impossible time to get there. If they were just 30
It's
minutes
difficult for
later.
folks who work other jobs. It is good for us because it means that we can have city people come to our meetings without getting involved with overtime and that sort of thing. And we do need a lot of assistance with this.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It's
Double-edged
been
sword.
enjoyable
Yeah.
to be there as well, very enlightening, so, thank you.
Thank you, Judy. That's John Richard, by the way.
Thank you.
Working hard. So, before I start, President Cook, do you wanna, just, explain that I talked to you
Sure.
about what?
Kind of like the ground rules,
Yeah,
so to speak.
thank you.
What Council Hegney is going to be doing tonight is bringing forward a number of the appointments or reappointments that came down in the mayor's communication of last week. And if you remember, at the time it came down, I had asked all members that if there were any particular appointments where you had a conflict of interest, to let Linda know or to let Council Hegney know, so that they could be separated out. That did happen in a few cases, so there are a couple of areas where some appointments have been pulled out, and therefore the councils will not be, at that point, those councils will be abstaining from the discussion and the vote and leaving the council chambers. I don't know if there's any others, where people didn't have a chance to talk to Ms. Hegney or whatever.
I haven't, I asked Linda.
Okay.
No one had contacted her, no one contacted me.
And I hadn't gotten anything
so-
different from Ms. Alger either at that point. I did want to point out that when we get to the discussion of the lockup keeper, that Councilor Hegney, as chair of the committee, will be stepping away because she has a conflict of interest, and Councilor Kirby will be stepping in and running the meeting at that particular time for Councilor Hagney. I also want to mention that when she gets to the constables, I too have a conflict of interest in that area due to my wife's occupation.
Sorry, no. I got confused with deputy sheriff. Sorry,
Okay.
Mr. President.
And it's because I had gotten an opinion from the city solicitor years ago. I have to step away because the constables and the deputy sheriffs are in competition, so to speak, with each other. And as my significant other is a deputy sheriff in Bristol County, I have a conflict. So therefore, from day one, since she was appointed, I have to step out at that time. So I just want to make mention of it. And when Ms. Hagney steps away, I'll probably be the third member on the committee at that time for Councilor Kirby.
Okay.
Okay? So just want to let you know what's going on. Yes?
So the reason why you're
Order yet, so it's open.
Okay.
okay,
Yeah.
The reason why you're stepping aside, Counselor, is that your wife's position as a constable is a paid position. She gets paid to do the work, and it's a financial.
She's actually a deputy sheriff.
Okay, so
Deputy sheriffs.
but
and
there's
the-
money involved.
Right.
Okay,
Exactly.
That's
The
that's
deputy
the
sheriffs
point.
and the constables are in competition, so to
That's the
speak.
point, because I know
And that's
my
the reason.
wife is on the list, she's on the trust commission, but she's not compensated for the position, therefore there's no ethical conflict.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a little asterisk for you. Yeah, it's open. I haven't called the committee for order yet, so that's why.
I'll have to step away also when they go to the constables.
Are you a constable?
Deputy sheriff.
Deputy sheriff.
Sure, okay, so I'll just make a, okay. I didn't call I figured before I called it to order, I'd let that be said.
Councilor
Okay.
Hagney, I'm sorry, but Hadley, my daughter Hadley is on for reappointment for Youth Commission, which I just have to declare that she's my daughter
No,
at
it's
that
just
time.
like
Yeah, it's just that,
conflict.
yeah.
not a
Yeah,
conflict.
Nope, it's just.
Yeah, you always
make that
disclose, like
yeah.
Mr. Kirby and whoever else.
Yeah, and anyone with that, if somebody's just doing it, probably when we get to that part of the meeting would be
Yeah.
the appropriate time to do it.
Just before,
keep track
I
of
just
it.
wanted to do that before I called the committee, before I kept going through, and then, as I said, Linda was not contacted, I was not contacted, and President Cook was not contacted for any other separation, so I'm reading them through.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to call to order Personnel and Human Services at 8:06 PM. Okay, for the first motion, it's the constables.
Okay. I'm
So
stepping-
Mr. Churchill and Mr. Cook. Okay.
Did he say see you tomorrow? God bless you.
Send me a seat of bliss.
From the docket of March 17th, 2015, I entertain a motion to confirm the following reappointments to positions and for terms as indicated. Tony Viveris, Walter Chacoine, Terrence McCrossin, constables for 1 year, expires February 2016. Thank you. As it says, it's for reappointment. Any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Yeah, they can come back. I'm sure they'll come back on their own.
One went out the door.
It's locked. Okay. I entertain a motion to confirm the following reappointments to positions and for terms as indicated. Charles Karen Attleboro, actually, no, I'm holding that one because it's for 5 years. And I think before we had a conversation about Housing Authority, the 5 years, and I wanted to actually invite him to come in. Okay, so motion.
In fact, I'm not sure if that's 5 years or 6 years.
Yeah, it
When I
says
read
5
that,
here.
I thought it was 6.
But, because that's, because I know before, sometimes with the housing authority stuff, had other issues had come up, so I just wanted to make sure, because it is 5 years. Okay, so William Hogarth, Board of Assessors, 3 years, February 2018. Milton Knox, Board of Fire Commissioners, 3 years, February 2017. Bruce Hagerman, Conservation Commission. Donald Ouellette, Conservation Commission. Sue Boudreau, Conservation Commission, 3 years, February 2018. Terrence Gayton, Joseph Ferros, David Larson, Council on Aging, 4 years, February 2019. Merrill Falk, Council on Human Rights, 3 years, February 2018. James Azevedo, Diane Keenan, Catherine O'Neill, Ben Couto, Cultural Council, 3 years, February 2018. Mr. Henry Riley III, Election Commission, 4 years, 2019. Linda Binns, Elaine Strominski, Cheryl Nemirovsky, Library Trustees, 3 years, February 2018. Richard Renoni, John Jacoby, bless you, Jacoby III, Jackie Romanicki, Terry DeSisto, Municipal Building Commission, 3 years, February 2018. Deborah Leach, Park Commission, 5 years, February 2020. Melinda Quirt, Julie Hall, Planning Board, 5 years, February 2020. Catherine Merkel, Personnel Board, 3 years, February 2018. James Delicio, Leo Johnson, Lynn Mendez, Board of Police Commissioners, 3 years, February 2018. James Delicio, Redevelopment Authority, 5 years, 2020. Christopher Stove, Solid Waste Advisory Committee, 3 years, February 2018. Gregory Eichowitz, Brenda Haskell, Walter Raras. Traffic Study Commission, 3 years, February 2018. Martha Conte, Trust Fund Commissioners, 3 years, 2018. We had a disclosure from Mr. Conte, and during the whole committee, council, you can disclose that too. Phil Audette, Veterans Grave Officer, 1 year, February 2016. Nathaniel O'Connor, Hadley Parika, disclosure, we can do it again during the whole council. Troy Nason, Brian Altbrick, Julie O'Connor, Daniel Hassenfuss, Nicholas Hassenfuss, Youth Commission, 1 year, February 2016. Kent Richard, Zoning Board of Appeals, Associate, 2 years, February 2017.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, and any other questions or comments on those? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, motion passes. I entertain a motion to confirm the following reappointments to positions and for terms as indicated. Randall Vincent, Laban O'Brien, Assistant Inspector of Wiring, 1 year, February 2016. Robert Mangiarotti, City Solicitor, 1 year, February 2016. Carl Bradshaw, Director of Veteran Services, Veterans Agent, Veteran Burial Agent, 1 year, February 2016. Excuse me, Gary Arazian, Director of Planning and Development, 2 years, February 2017. Tara Martin, Environmental Planner, 2 years, February 2017. Scott LaChance, Forest Warden, 1 year, February 2016. Christopher Quinn, Health Officer, 1 year, February 2016. Brian Germain, Inspector of Gas Piping and Gas Appliances, 3 years, February 2018. Joan Higgins, Parking Clerk, 1 year, February 2016. Owen Bebo, Personnel, Bebo, Personnel Director, 3 years, February 2018.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments on those? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, motion passes. My last motion, I have to abstain, walk away, and then, do you want me to just have them finish the committee?
Oh, you
or
do,
come back?
you can do the planning board and then just turn it over.
Okay. No, I'm having him come in, because
Okay.
that's a new one.
Okay. Oh, you haven't given, so you're holding
Yeah.
that one?
Yeah, I'm holding that one, because
Okay.
that's a new one. The other one's a reappointment.
Okay,
So
Okay.
did you just be the one motion,
Just
and then
number
adjourn-
4.
and then
And you
adjourn
can
the-
adjourn,
right. So I'd like 4 motions tonight.
yeah.
Okay.
No, I didn't realize you were holding one, so,
One.
okay.
It's a new one.
That's fine. Okay, so you have 4 motions.
One more motion. Still from the docket of March 7th, no, that's fine. Still from the docket of March 17th, 2015. I entertain a motion to confirm the reappointment of Kyle Hegney as lockup keeper for a term of 1 year, term to expire February 2016.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Obviously, with Ms. Hegney's relationship with Kyle Hegney, she can't be present for that. No other questions? Move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. That's all the business for Personnel and Human Services. I move to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned at 8:13. Thank you.
I think that's a wrap, gentlemen and ladies.
That a wrap? That's a wrap.
A wrap for tonight.